One of the questions that we get a lot is about domain names. What domain name should you use for your brand? How can you choose a domain name that really works for the business and the brand positioning that you want to create for your business? But also, how do you make sure that you own your domain name? Now, I'll just tell you a little kind of horror story from a few years ago when I was delivering a brand strategy session for a firm of lawyers. Now, they had three legal businesses under one main legal entity, but each of the businesses, each of the sister companies as such within the main brand, they all had a different division, something that they were really focused on. So I created the brand strategy for all three of those companies. And it was just as I was leaving their offices at the end of the day that I just said to them, hey, you do own your domain name, don't you? And they said, yeah, of course we do. And I said, okay, I want to double check. There's something in my gut instinct that's telling me that you don't own this domain name. How did you buy the domain? And they said, oh, we got our designer to do it. I said, okay, so I want you to go on to whois.com and find out who the registrant of that domain name is to make sure that you have complete ownership of it. They went on to Whois. Sure enough, they found that it was their designer who had bought the domain name for them, had used their credit card, had used their name and everything on it. And so ultimately, this company that was investing so much money in the branding and building of the brand, that to not have ownership of that domain name is like building your dream home on a piece of land that you don't own, that the person who owns the land can take that land away at any time, and then what are you left with? So I got them to reach out to their design company and get access and ownership of that domain. Now, the challenge was that they'd already built so much brand equity in that business that the business was now turning over many millions each and every year. The domain was owned by their design company, technically, and they had no right to that domain name, and they'd built everything on it. The company that had bought the domain name held them to ransom. They said to buy that domain name would cost them $1 million. $1 million. Can you imagine building your entire business and creating all this incredible brand exposure and visibility to then have the rug pulled from underneath your entire business? The domain name was all over everything. They'd put it into all their marketing materials, their advertising strategies. To undo all of that would have been so much work, so many more thousands of pounds invested in redoing everything. And it was an American company that they'd done it with. That's not to say there's anything wrong with American companies. It's just this was a UK company who had bought a domain and had an American designer. So there were all kind of complications as part of this thing. So here's the design company wanting $1 million for the domain name that this UK company had come up with all those years before. The domain name, claims.com. Can you imagine how much power that design company had then over this legal firm? It was a nightmare, absolute nightmare for them. And ultimately, they couldn't own their domain name. The design company wouldn't release it. And to this day, I don't even know if they've got the rights to that domain name. I know they were legally fighting it. I suppose it always helps if you're a legal company. But what if you're not? So I want you to learn from that experience and make sure that you are protecting yourself, protect your brand, start as you mean to go on. So there's two things that I want to cover in this video. The first is how to select the perfect domain name for your business. And the second is how do you protect yourself and make sure that you own it. So the first step, when you're thinking about the domain name for your business, I would consider using something that is very boring, but something that people are searching for. So when I created the name for how to build a brand, I came up with about 30 different names. My ex-business partner and I, at the time, we were brainstorming, we were coming up with lots of different ideas. And when we did our keyword searches on what it was that people were actually looking for, we found that there was a massive volume of searches for the term how to build a brand each and every month. So we had a choice. Do we call it what we want to call it, something fun and creative and funky, doesn't mean anything to anyone, got to explain it all the time, every time somebody picks up the phone and you have to explain what your domain name is or what your business name is, you've got to spell it out all the time, they always get it wrong. So we had that option, and we'd taken that option before with another business, which is why we were like, okay, we want something that's easy to spell, something that's easy to remember, easy to repeat, something that, you know, if you're being interviewed, you can easily articulate it and people would know exactly how to spell it on the other end. We've gone through that pain before. Do you call it something that is completely unique and that you have to explain each time? Or do you call it something that is easy to remember and something that people are actually searching into Google? The evidence was overwhelming as to how many people were searching for it. So whilst how to build a brand wasn't the most sexiest name, it wasn't the sexiest title, it was the thing that people are searching for. So not only was it what people were thinking in their mind, it was what they were typing into Google. If we could own that domain name and we could create content that had those exact keywords, how to build a brand, repeatedly in our content, on our homepage, across all of our website, across everything we did, if we could get that search term into everything we did, we would appear very quickly at the top of Google. Or we could call it what we liked and invest loads of money driving visibility to it until it got to the top. We didn't want to do things the hard way, so we picked the easy option and it worked. We went from 437 million in the Google search rankings on day one when we first bought that domain name. Can you imagine being 437 million articles and pieces of content back in Google? Most people don't search past the first 1 or 2 pages. But because we were really clear in our keyword strategy, because we chose a domain name that matched what our clients were searching for, we could show up for direct results in what they were searching for. Everything we did had that term in it. It meant that we were able to rank very quickly. And within 12 weeks of a pure content strategy, and we could talk about that in another article, with a pure content strategy, within 12 weeks, we were number 3 at the top of Google for the key search terms that we wanted to be found for. Now, we don't have that company anymore. We've pulled everything through into One Drop Movement. So everything is now part of One Drop Movement. So if you type in how to build a brand, that's not what we want to be found for anymore, because I'm in a different business now. However, if you've got a keyword, oh, that's the universe calling to say, get that domain name sorted. If you've got a keyword that you know that your dream customers are searching for, then create the domain name around that. Don't try and create something and over brand it, over complicate it and call it something nice and fancy or something in Latin. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. If you want to make things easy, then call it what people are actually searching for. A way that I go and look at what's available is to go on to names.co.uk. You can use GoDaddy. There's all kinds of different domain providers, but I believe that names.co.uk is the best one that is out there, only because it has more domain extensions. So you can find all kinds of stuff. If you type in the keywords that you know your dream customers are looking for, type them into names.co and .co.uk, and you'll find that it has lots and lots of different extensions on the end. So not only .co.uk, .com, .org, .biz, all of those, but you'll find .tv, .office, .club, .hub, whatever, right? It's got the biggest group of domain extensions, so alternative versions that can be really, really exciting, can be really fun. And if you're driving direct traffic to whatever it is you're selling, whatever you're doing, then having different domain extensions can also be a good way of doing it. If the .com has gone, for example, .tv or .global might be a good alternative for you. So we've looked at how to think about your domain name. Of course, we can go deeper, and if you've got any questions, then pop them in the comments below and I'll make sure that I answer you with those the answers. But the second thing that we wanted to cover today was about making sure that you own your domain. So if you go to somewhere like names.co.uk, they make it very easy for you to buy your domain name. So you just go through the process, select the options. If you do have a design company or a marketing company that is doing it for you, make sure that as they do it, they've got you on the phone, that it's your credit card details that you're giving, that it's your email address that they are typing in to connect it to you, that it's your name. And if they're buying it on your behalf, make sure that you own it. And the best way to find out if you own it or not is to go online, type in who is, I think it's whois.com, but you can find out. You just type in who is into Google and it will come up for you. And you'll be able to type in your domain name and see who the registrant is for your company. So I hope that's been helpful for you. If you've got any questions, like I say, pop them in the comments below. I'll answer them as quickly as I can. And you know what? Just take ownership of your brand. If you don't, then somebody else will. So please, please, please protect yourself, protect your brand. If you're creating anything that is driving visibility, if you're taking the time to invest in yourself to do that, then just take this little bit of time just to double check that you own your domain names, that you are the registrant, that it's got your email address, that it's on your bank card, and that you've got all of the access details that you need to get into it at any time. And make sure you press auto renew as well, so that you never ever lose a domain without knowing first and having the option, being given the choice. They'll usually let you know a good kind of 2-3 weeks in advance that your domain is coming up for renewal, so you can go and check that. So have an amazing day. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video, and if you've got questions, put them below. See you soon.